Today we're going to be talking about how you guys can prepare for your first season of tackle football and some of the best equipment that you can buy for your first year. Now, when it comes down to preparing for your first year of tackle, it doesn't matter what age you are at, whether you're entering your freshman year, it's your first season, you're 11, 12-year-old entering your first season, you need to train with pads and a helmet on as soon as possible and work different contact drills. We're going to show you some drills as we progress throughout this video that you can do with pads and a helmet on that is not really going to, like, I guess you could say, put a ton of pressure or wear and tear on your body, but it gets you used to that feeling of contact. So guys, I recommend, what month is it? We're almost in April, right? April, May, June, July, August is when pads start. So I recommend getting in pads before June, just so you can get comfortable with it. I highly recommend making the investment into your first pair of pads on your own. Don't rely on the pads that the school will give you if you can financially afford it, of course. And same thing with your helmet, just so you get more comfortable with it. Honestly, if you're just training in the pads, they don't even have to be the best quality pads. You could find cheap pads and helmet all over the place if you were just training with them on. Now we're going to get into the exact drills that you can do to prepare yourself for that contact. Now also, you guys, if you're a quarterback or wide receiver and you would like to train with myself this off season, we're going to be coming out to 8 more states across the country for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camps. Now, however, guys, all 8 of our camps are completely almost sold out. We only have 4 remaining camps that have spots available. That's our camp in Buffalo, New York, Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan, and Los Angeles, California. So guys, if you've been thinking about attending one of those 4 camps, we would love to have you. Check out that very first link in the description below. All of these camps will be sold out within the next week. So make sure you take advantage of that. Again, very first link in that description below. Let's get back to this video. Now let's talk about some drills for quarterbacks and wide receivers to get used to pads, to contact, and playing tackle football for the first time. So let's start with quarterbacks, then we'll progress to receivers. So something I do, and you need a partner for this, is what I do with my quarterbacks, especially if they're new to tackle, is as soon as like May, June rolls around, what I do is I'll get out either a blocking bag, so one of those bags, like one of those shields, I guess you could say, you can put your arm through, or I will get a pool noodle, and what I will do is I'll just have my quarterbacks go through a regular throwing workout, but after every throw, I'm hitting them with the bag. I'm hitting them with the pool noodle, or as they are throwing, I'm hitting them with the bag and the pool noodle, just so they get used to that contact, that shock and awe of getting hit the first time. You don't want the first hit that you take while performing a football movement to be in August, because you're going to be very, very far behind a lot of the other kids that you are training with. Now, what do I do with receivers? So with receivers, I'll get the same thing. I'll get a pool noodle. Usually what I'll do, guys, because sometimes a pool noodle, especially if you're a high school aged athlete, I'll put like a PVC pipe inside of the pool noodle. Make sure that the PVC pipe isn't hanging out, because that can hurt real bad if it hits you on like the forearm or the shin or whatever. But to give the pool noodle a little bit more padding, make it a little bit more realistic, I'll do that. Or I'll get my blocking bag, and I'll have receivers do regular catching drills, running routes, breaking, and as a quarterback's throwing them the ball, I'll give them some contact through the catch. After they catch it, I'll give them some contact just so they get used to that. As a receiver, that's one of the toughest parts about playing tackle football, is being able to go over the middle, catch the ball, and withstand a hit. And flag, you don't have to worry about it. 7-on-7, you don't have to worry about it, but in real football, you do. So those are 2 simple things that you could do to get yourself ready for pads. So now let's get into some equipment for your first year of tackle football. So we're going to start with shoulder pads, then we're going to progress to helmets, and then we're going to talk about your cleats. So when it comes down to shoulder pads, what I recommend for skill position players, I recommend 2 types of pads. If you're a high school aged player, I recommend these pads. They're called 2-in-1. So the number 2, IN, the number 1. If you search that up on Google, Safari, wherever, you will be able to find them. Now there are 2 pairs of pads, right? And again, this is for you older guys, because they do not make these pads for youth athletes as of yet, to my knowledge, but I'm going to give you youth athletes, you youth parents, a great alternative to this in a second. But those 2-in-1 pads, essentially what it is you put on a vest. It's like it's not a weighted vest, it doesn't really weigh that much, but it's a vest with padding on, and then you take either a carbon fiber or a polyester like plate that you will see on the outside of shoulder pads, and you put that over it. I'm telling you right now, you guys have worn these pads before, this is the most range of motion you will ever have. And if you're new to tackle football, especially as a skill position player, you're probably worried about range of motion. Am I going to be able to catch a high pass? Is my throwing motion going to feel the same? And they will feel the same with those 2-in-1 shoulder pads. So I recommend those. Now there's 2 versions. They have a carbon fiber one and a polyester one. Get the polyester one, guys. The carbon fiber one's ridiculously overpriced. It's like $700. Don't spend that on pads. The carbon fiber one, or not the carbon fiber one, the polyester one, I want to say is around that $200 range, it's definitely worth it. That's still higher end for pads, but it's 100% worth it. Now, if you're a youth player, I recommend the Zenith Velocity 2.0 youth pads. Those are some of the best pads for my youth guys. I recommend them to all my younger guys, ages 9 to 12, because you do have a ridiculous amount of range of motion. If the pads are tight, you'll be able to move freely. So those are great pads that I recommend. Now, for a starter helmet, I don't think you need to break the bank when getting a football helmet. I don't think you need to get a Vices. I don't think you need to get the light helmet. Just get a Rydell Speed Flex. It's a great starter helmet. It is very comfortable, has the adjustable chin straps. It's safe, it's highly rated, and that is ultimately what I recommend as far as equipment goes. Now let's get into cleats. Now, when it comes down to your football cleats, you guys, there are two pairs that I recommend. Number one is the Nike Vapor Edge 360 2.0 cleats. Those cleats have great support. I feel like they have great grip, and that's obviously very important, especially if you're a skill position player, you're worried about cutting, or whatever the case may be. Number two, I recommend the Adizero cleats. Anything from Adizero 12.0 and above. Those are honestly fairly affordable cleats for how much they're charging for cleats nowadays. So the Adizero Adidas cleats are obviously great cleats to have because they're very light, especially if you're worried about, oh, am I going to feel weighed down with all the gear, etc., all that. So guys, those are the best cleats, those are the best helmets, those are the best pads, and what you can do to get ready for tackle football.